All right, what's going on, everybody? Brian Zimmerman here, executive editor of Jazz's Magazine, and I want to welcome you to today's episode of Jazz's Live. We're calling it Jazz's Live because it is 5 p.m. Eastern, where we are, and a little too early for last call. But that said, it is still Miles Monday. Which means we dedicate this whole episode to all things Miles Davis. We are joined in this endeavor by Miles Davis's nephew, Vince Wilburn Jr., who will be on in a minute, and Mr. Lenny White, who was the drummer on Miles Davis's 1970 album, Bitches Brew. He was also in Chick Corea's Return to Forever. We'll be talking a little bit about that. Anyway, since it is Miles Monday, let us know if you have seen Miles Davis in person. If you've been to a Miles Davis concert, I'm so curious. Let us know in the comments. If you have a question for either Vince or Lenny, let us know in the comments. Let us know your favorite Miles album. Let us know anything about Miles Davis. Let us know where you're watching from. Say hi to Vince. Say hi to Lenny. We want to hear about it in the comments. And if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh my God, there's definitely someone I know who's going to want to talk to either Lenny or Vince, share this link and let's make it a jam. Let's get everybody involved. Let's make it a good hang. And as always, if you have questions, like I say, for Vince or Lenny, submit them. We'll try to get to them at the end of the show. Anyway, it is Miles Monday. We are celebrating the life of a jazz legend today and every Monday. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring today's co-host, Vince Wilburn Jr., into the picture and Mr. Lenny White. Vince and Lenny, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, what's up, B?
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for joining us on Miles Monday. We certainly appreciate it. Now, our viewers know they've seen Vince before. He is my co-host for Miles Monday, but this is a real treat. We are joined by Mr. Lenny White. Thanks for being here, man. How you been?
Good. Very good.
Holed up, quarantine, locked away. You've been working on any projects while you're at home?
Yeah, yes. A few things. Actually, Vince and I are doing Miles Davis Electric Band.
That's right.
And I am going to have some of my orchestral pieces played by NYU Orchestra this semester, whenever it starts or gets back together. So I've been working on a few things.
Awesome. Well, hey, I would love to start at the beginning for you because you kind of got a fascinating story. You grew up in New York, right?
Yes.
You were Jamaica, Queens. Queens representing, right? I lived in Forest Hills for a while. You were a largely self-taught cat, right? I mean, did you take formal lessons growing up? How did
not largely.
Yeah.
All self-taught.
All the way self-taught.
Ain't no bit of it not self-taught. No.
Yeah. Very cool. So you were when'd you get your first kit?
Oh, I don't know. I was maybe about I started playing at 14.
Okay.
So I mean, I think my first kit was a Kent drum kit.
Kent.
Kent. It was a bass drum and a snare drum. That's all it was. And it had a cymbal going through the middle of the bass drum, and you put your cymbal up there. It's Kent.
If you can groove on it, you can groove on it. Vince, when did you start playing drums?
I was a little drummer boy in kindergarten.
Okay, a little bit of a head start.
Well, in the head start, I'm still catching up, trying to catch up. I had a Norma kit. Norma.
Woo! I ain't never heard of that one, man.
From Monroe. Monroe is a mail order catalog place, real popular in Chicago where I grew up. And it was a Norma, Norma kit, Blue Sparkle.
Woo!
Then a kid down the street had a Blue Sparkle kit that I got off of him, and he had flowers. He had flowers stuck on his drums, and I combined the kit because I wanted to look at double bass kit.
Yeah.
But it was wild. But the different sparkles were two different shades, the two kits. So the kit with the flowers on it was a little lighter than my kit, But
I got it actually after that kit, I kind of grew out of that. Then my dad got me a kit from a drum instructor by the name of Brad Spinney, and he had a kit that was Premier, and it had a heater in the bass drum.
A heater?
Yes, because it's calf skins, like you had to heat the drums
Oh,
up.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, keep it supple. Yeah.
This is before plastic heads,
Wow.
and so yeah,
Very
it
cool,
was it was an older kit. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. And by the way, hey, people are writing in. Ronald is saying he used to give lessons on a Kent kit at a music shop.
Wow.
Matt Merowitz is saying, hey, man, hello to Matt Merowitz. Hello to Cassandra. Hello to Sean. Everybody watching. Again, if you think there's somebody who wants to be in on this conversation, click that share button. Let's make this a hang. So, Lenny, okay, how did you go from being a self-taught cat playing the New York scene to eventually meeting Miles Davis? Who were you playing with in between?
I played with Jackie McLean.
So that was the big launch pad.
No. So there's a lineage here. So what happened is when I heard, I was 17 years old and I heard 7 Steps to Heaven.
Okay.
And I found out that the drummer on 7 Steps to Heaven was 17 years old when he recorded it, and that was Tony Williams.
That's right.
Immediately, he became my guy.
Okay.
And immediately, my goal was to play with Miles Davis.
Wow.
So
from that
I had found out. I got the gig with Jackie McLean, and I found out that Jack DeJohnette played with Jackie McLean.
Sure.
And then he went and played with Miles. So everybody's saying to me, everybody's going, "Oh man, yeah, you're gonna play with Miles now. You're gonna play with Miles." I said, "Yeah, right. But that became my goal, and sure enough, I got an opportunity to play with Miles 2 years later.
Wow. Did the introduction come through Jackie?
No. Actually, Miles called my house.
Wow.
And
no, Lynn, tell him about your mom.
He called my house, and he had that raspy voice.
Yeah.
And my mother said, "Who's this?" And she said, "I don't care who you are, but if you don't speak up, I'm gonna hang up this phone." So, in actuality, he got through, and then he asked me to come to his house, and bring a cymbal and a snare drum, and all we rehearsed was the actual beginning of Bitches Brew. That went, diddle 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 bah bah bah.
Yeah.
And that's all we rehearsed. And he said, "Be in the studio at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning."
Wow. So, wow. Yeah. Miles was kind of famous for doing this, right? He'd find your phone number somehow, give you a call, be at the studio.
Yeah. He told Herbie, show up tomorrow at my house, and didn't even give him the address, just hung up. Herbie Hancock. and for Daryl Jones, he had Daryl play over the phone.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
But he knew.
He said Daryl played a little bit. He said, "Well, how long is it going to take you to get here?" And Daryl said, "Well, I could be in New York in a couple of days." So Uncle Miles said, "What you gonna do? Walk?"
For Miles, it's a drop everything kind of a situation.
Oh yeah.
See, but he knew. See, the fact is, I think what was great, he probably asked around to a lot of people, and then he heard something in all the people that he really wanted to try to listen to.
Yeah.
To get his music across. That's what he did with everybody. I mean, So
absolutely. I mean, it's hard to say, but what do you think he heard in you? Because I know in addition to the jazz thing, you were also coming from an Earth, Wind and Fire background, a lot of R&B. So as he was putting this fusion project together, do you think he may have picked up on that sensibility in you a little bit?
Well, it wasn't fusion when we did it.
Right.
It was jazz rock.
Yeah.
And
fusion was kind of a dirty word back then.
It still is.
Yeah.
So, but what happened was, I think the fact is that he had heard that I was playing with Jackie McLean.
Yeah. And
I got a recommendation from Tony Williams.
Okay. Yeah. That'll get a cosign from Tony, and that does it. So, man.
And I don't know where Tony had heard me, because he might have just had spoken to Jackie McLean. I don't know.
But Lenny, the word probably got around,
That's a possibility.
Yeah. But were you at the studio really early for the record day?
The cleaning lady let me in. I was supposed everybody was supposed to be there at 10 o'clock. I was there at 9:30, and the cleaning lady let me in, and I came in and set up my stuff right next to Jack.
Right.
And
Wow.
like I was tuning in, trying to get stuff. And Miles comes in, and he presses down the talk back in the control room. He said, "Hey, Jack." He said, "Yeah, Miles. Tell that young drummer to shut up." I'm in the studio, and right away,
Yeah, right.
And
Trial
hey,
by
Lynn,
fire.
where's that Bitches Brew bass drum?
you have it. You have it right there.
Right here. Hold on, Frog.
Do you really?
You got, yeah,
man.
Hold on. Let me take my headphones off.
You got to see this because it's not a regular bass drum. It was made from an oil drum.
Oh man, this was
Look at that,
man. This was the bass you were playing on for the whole session.
Yes, we're trying to put that in the African American Museum.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Now, where'd this come from? Where was this picked up?
No, it was there's a friend of mine who knew Dave Liebman.
Yeah.
And Lenny, what was Lenny's bass player last name? Lenny Fields, I think, and Steve Grossman.
Okay.
They had a friend, I think his name was Jimmy something. Jimmy Matt. No, I don't know if it's Jimmy Matt. Anyway, he had this drum, and I heard about it, and I saw it. I said, "Oh, I got to get that drum." It was black. It was all black.
Okay.
And Elvin wanted the drum. And I got it before Elvin did. I bought it before Elvin did. But like that's an actual oil drum.
Wow, man.
That oil was in, and like he did put machines on it, and like it was really great, man. That's got one of those old mounts for tom toms. It was really cool. And it sounded great. Although when I took that drum to Rudy Van Gelder's to do Red Clay with Ron Carter, he said, "Nope, you can't use that drum." Nope.
It had a certain kind of sound.
Yes.
Worked for Bitches Brew when you're in there with Jack. Yeah. So, hey, Vince, were you at these sessions too? Were you at these Bitches Brew sessions?
No. I was in Chicago trying to be like Lenny White.
There you
Trying
go.
to be Lenny White. No, I was coming up, But I used to ask Lenny to repeat the stories, tell me the stories.
Well,
Lenny, hey, you know what, B? Lenny and I are like a lot like brothers, man. I consider us family.
Yeah, I've known him for such a long time, man.
I used to wait for Lenny when he would tour. I'd wait at the auditorium. It was like a little alleyway, and Lenny would come if it was the auditorium of the Park West or the Erie Crown, and he'd give me a hug and point to his road manager, and his road manager would just give me all these tickets and passes. Then I'd have my boys come down, all the drummers, all my boys, we come down to check out. I'd call, "Hey man, Lenny hooked me up." All the cats would come down.
Yeah, man. I love it.
Oh man, and this went on for years.
Part of the Miles Davis family. No, and so the stories are famous about that session. We've heard so much about these Bitches Brew sessions. You were there, Lenny, so maybe you can help dispel some of the myths. The myth is that it was just craziness and the musicians couldn't hear each other and it was just like wild. But take me back to the beginning where the band is there and Miles is kind of, kicking things off.
Well, okay. The situation is there are a lot of people that say that they were on the Bitches Brew sessions. And this is not true.
Uh-huh.
The Bitches Brew sessions were done 3 days in August of 1969. It was recorded 24 hours after Jimi Hendrix played the last note at Woodstock.
Wow.
And there were 13 musicians. And the musicians were Miles Davis, Wayne Shorter, Benny Maupin,
right.
John McLaughlin, Harvey Brooks,
Don Elias?
Don Elias, Juma Santos, Jack DeJohnette, myself, and Dave Holland.
Okay.
Those are the musicians that were on Bitches, and we recorded for 3 days.
Wow.
And those are the musicians that were. Now, see what happens though. What happened a lot is Miles would record, and then they would release things later that said the complete Bitches Brew sessions, but that's not the case.
With extra musicians on there.
There were extra musicians, and they were done at a later date.
Yeah.
Because when I heard that they were going to release the complete Bitches Brew sessions,
right,
I thought that they were going to release the outtakes and everything, because some of the music had changed when we recorded it. There were things that were done that Tio cut things and put the bridge where the beginning was and changed things around. I said, oh, okay, so now we're going to hear all of that.
Right.
That wasn't the case.
No.
Now, you can go online. For some reason, on YouTube, you can, I think it's called the Bitches Brew Outtakes or whatever, and you can hear some of those things that I thought was going to be on the Bitches Brew, complete Bitches Brew sessions. So I don't know how they got those tapes, but
you're saying the original sessions was just that core group that you described.
That's it.
And what
there were no pictures, no cameras, nothing like that. Yeah. The only person that was at the Bitches Brew session that was not part of the group was Max Roach.
Wow.
Just checking things out.
Yep. Max was there. Well, he and Miles were tight. You know.
Lenny, of course.
Hey, Lenny, but before the sessions, did you all rehearse at Miles at 177?
All we rehearsed was the beginning of Bitches Brew. Wow. That was
it?
As a group. That was the only thing you had down.
So nothing else.
Who was
and
that
was
house?
Jack, Chick, Wayne, Dave Holland, and Miles. That
was it. The only thing.
That was it. And all I had was a cymbal and a snare drum. That was it.
And then he said, you'll be at the studio tomorrow.
Be at the studio tomorrow at
and was that the first thing you recorded? Was that the first thing you recorded off the bat?
No. I mean, we had gone through some different configurations of things.
Right.
And I mean, I learned a big lesson. One of the lessons that I learned was we had done, we were getting ready to do Miles Runs the Voodoo Down.
Okay.
And Jack and I were playing what we thought was really hip. We thought, it was, and that's not what Miles wanted. Miles said, no, you ain't getting the chicken. And so, because he wanted something that was really funky.
Okay.
Getting the chicken.
Now, I probably had played more funk music than anybody. I was the youngest guy there, and I didn't. And I outthought myself. And so Don Elias, he said, Miles, I got a beat. And he came up with like the most simple beat, like and Jack didn't play it either. So he wound up playing that, and I wound up playing percussion. I wound up playing shekere,
okay. Hey.
on that, And
Shekere's got a groove too.
And after that session, I was like, oh man, I was really despondent. I went over in the corner and I was like, oh, I can't believe I had an opportunity to play with Miles. And Miles came over and said, what's wrong? I said, man, I thought, he said, no. Be here tomorrow at 10 o'clock, So I got a reprieve. And we did Spanish Key.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what did it.
Killing.
Yeah, the challenge of playing, because it's a 2-drummer record, for the most part.
Yes.
He's got
it was 2 drummers and 2 percussion players.
And 2 percussionists.
Yeah.
What is the challenge for both of you? I mean, you're both drummers of playing in a 2-drummer setting like that. Because I imagine you can't be too busy.
No. It's not a challenge at all to me.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't look at it as a challenge, because what I wanted it to do is I wanted it to sound like one drummer that had 8 arms. So I would listen and I'd play. But see, Miles he came over to me and he said, think of this as a big pot of stew. And I want you to be salt.
Mm.
So now, what musical knowledge am I going to use to sound like Saul? So immediately, it wasn't about playing music; it was about creating music. So he gave me an opportunity to create some music. So I learned how to create music before I learned how to play it.
Right.
Afterwards, I
Hey,
learned how to
Lenny,
play music.
I got a question. I
Yeah.
read or I heard, I think Benny mentioned it, that after a day of recording, the music was so powerful that some of the guys went out and had a discussion about what was recorded. You know, like they couldn't believe what just happened.
Nobody knew what it was. I mean, there was no precedent. Now, see, they had done In a Silent Way, but In a Silent Way was just, a few tracks. And like,
Right.
Tony just played side stick on certain things. And,
Mm-hmm.
like it laid a palette for what was to become. But man, this was like 13 musicians. And
Wow.
it's the most African sounding record I thought that Miles ever made. Because, you had 13 musicians and there was a collective consciousness.
Right.
So like, egos weren't there because you don't know what it is that you're going to play. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you know what it is you're going to play, you're going to play like a blues and F or whatever. Yeah, I can get my stuff up. But nobody knew what it was going to be. And after we did it, we didn't know what it was going to be. And I was the only one that got an opportunity to hear it because Miles called me up and told me to come by his house. And we sat and listened to outtakes.
Wow.
Okay.
And what was your impression then? Because that's what I've heard. Guys were in the studio laying it down. They had no idea what it sounded like.
No.
They didn't get to hear. So, but you were at Miles' house. You get to listen to some demo. What was your impression of it then? Clicks play and you hear it for the first time.
Okay, I'm telling you the truth.
Okay.
The fact is, I was in Miles Davis's house with Miles Davis, listening to music that I played with Miles Davis, and I'm going like, "Wow, this is in August."
Yeah.
In October, I woke up out of a dead sleep. I recorded with Miles Davis. The reason why is because, a lot of people say, "Yeah, man, I played with Miles," but this was documented.
Yeah.
This was going to be documented, and for the rest of the life of the world and me and after me,
long after we're gone.
Right, I was going to be able to say I played with Miles Davis, and my name was going to be on the album.
Hey, Lenny, tell her the story about in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, no. What happened is I had gone to San Francisco. I was in school. I was in college at the time, and I got an opportunity to play with Buddy Montgomery, Wes Montgomery's brother. We went on the road and went to San Francisco. And my parents had said, if you leave school, you're going to be on your own. So you're not coming back here. So, yeah. So I got out there, and there was a newspaper strike. We played in Vancouver, and there's a newspaper strike, and nobody showed up. So we didn't make any money. We had to throw bags out of the hotel and drive away and all that stuff. And we got to San Francisco, and Buddy had a friend who lives in San Francisco, so we could stay, in certain places. And I was walking down Geary Street, and it was about like 6 o'clock, and there was a record store, and in the record store it had a sign that said "New Miles Davis album." So I knocked on the window and I said, "Please, can you just show me the album cover? Because I'm playing on that record." So the guy was nice enough. So he went back and he got the album cover and he held up the album cover.
Wow.
Man, that's one of my favorite album covers of all time anyway.
Absolutely.
And so I looked, I said, "Wow." I said, "Can you just turn it around, turn it around?" I want to see, because I wanted to see my name. Because I was as a kid, I would write my name on the back of album covers.
Wow.
So that I could see
what you were on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like. And he held it up. And if you look at that album cover now, it says Miles Davis trumpet, Wayne Shorter soprano saxophone, Lenny White drums. I was the third guy, and I was like, Oh my God!
You couldn't believe it.
Totally freaked out. Totally.
Oh,
freaked
that's
out.
awesome, man. Yeah, beautiful album cover. One of my favorites as well. I forget the name of the German painter who did it.
Yeah, no, it's
Maddie
Maddie Claren.
Claren.
Yes.
Maddie
Maddie
Claren.
Claren, yeah.
But so representative of the music, just like you said.
Yes.
Futuristic, Afrocentric. It was the impression that, okay, this is unlike anything you've heard before, because this album cover is like anything you've seen before.
That's right. It was all right, packaged the right way. And you got to think about what was happening in 1968, 69. And so, like, when that music came out at that same time period, it was like conscious music because of what was going on. It was really, really heavy and deep, man. That was a renaissance. It was going through a musical renaissance anyway. I mean, you know, like Sly and James Brown and Jimi Hendrix was still alive at that point.
Right.
The music was going to something totally different, man.
Yeah.
You know.
There was even a memo when the label asked Uncle Miles what was the title going to be, and he said, "I'm gonna call it Bitches Brew." And back then, you couldn't say, you know what
That's
I mean?
right.
Right.
What happened is, like, people say, "Hey, man, I heard that you recorded with Miles Davis." I said, "Yeah." They said, "What's the name of the album?" I said, "Bitches Brew." "Oh, Witches Brew." I said, "No, Bitches Brew." Witches Brew. No, Bitches Brew.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Even that was a statement unto itself, you know, to name the album something like that.
I never forget. We had gone to some place that was a Miles tribute, and Miles's brother Vernon was there, and Vince introduced me. He said, "Uncle Vernon, this is Lenny White. He played on Bitches Brew," and his uncle said, "Oh, I hated that title. I never liked that title."
And when they sent it to my parents' house, Brian, I stared at the record. I just stared at the cover.
Yeah.
Let alone the music. But when I put the record on, I was hypnotized. You know, I was like in a trance. There it is. It was like, you know, it was like I was transformed into something. It was like, you know, it was deep, even for me. For all my boys, you know, growing up in Chicago, you know, because my dad, he liked the acoustic side, you know, and then this electric side. So when my dad's friends would come over, they would have arguments. Like Vince, why are you putting that on? Let's put on Sketches of Spain. Take off, you know. But it was like the you know, like the electric side and the acoustic side. But Bitches Brew changed a lot of people's lives, man.
Yes, it did.
It was a part of that musical renaissance that was happening.
And that you were so involved in, Lenny. I mean, you know, from there, you know, to Return to Forever, some of the stuff you did with Al Di Meola. You know, and I'm curious, you the fusion word, the F word, still a dirty word, so you don't like to call it fusion?
Well, here's the point.
Yeah.
Basically, what happened is there was a new music that was created that nobody had a name for. And basically what it was created from two diametrically opposed types of music. You had jazz and the complexity of jazz and harmonic complexity of what jazz was. And then you had rock, which was like straight beats and, you know, not a lot of chords and everything. So you had jazz rock.
Right.
And that's what it was.
Right.
Later on, they started to make it something that was a fusion, jazz fusion, because you took the two. But before there was a fusion, it was jazz and it was rock. It was jazz rock. When Tony Williams did Lifetime, that was jazz rock. It was an organ trio, which is one of the conventional organ groups. I mean, jazz groups. An organ trio on steroids.
Larry Young.
Yeah. It's like, what?
I even like jazz rock better than jazz fusion.
Well, yeah.
Something to be said about that for sure.
Mahavishnu Orchestra, Return to Forever, Weather Report, Headhunters. Those are the seminal bands, and that was jazz rock
because it captured the spirit of both at the time. You know,
so there was an energy in rock and roll.
Right.
There was an energy in jazz, and they did this together, and they made this energetic music that I mean, I remember talking with Chip, and like people would say, people said, well, like you guys played fusion, because you had the fusion of classical and whatever. And Chick said, well, I didn't think of it like that. The fact is like when we were creating a certain kind of music, there was a certain kind of energy that we were looking to interject into the music. And so we might have played something that had the energy of rock and roll, but what we needed for the composition was the energy created in classical music.
And if that happens to touch classical, if that happens to touch jazz, that happens to touch rock,
exactly
so
right.
be it. But it's the spirits, the energy.
But see,
that makes a lot of sense.
All the great quote unquote jazz musicians never just listen to jazz.
Right.
They listen to all different kinds of music.
I'm glad you said that, Lenny.
And then what happens is they tighten their lens, and their lens is a jazz lens. So like, Miles Davis didn't just listen to jazz. He listened to
James
classical
Brown,
music. He listened to music. Exactly, because to have that harmonic range, you have to find those kinds of things on other kinds of musics. And then you bring that into the jazz perspective, and your jazz changes. Your jazz becomes something that, wow, I don't know what it is, so I'm going to call it fusion. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, it makes sense. It makes absolute sense. So, Lenny, what was your relationship with Miles post Bitches Brew, after Bitches Brew, and when did you first meet Mr. Vince Wilburn Jr.?
Oh, Vince, where you up? 15 years old? I don't know, man.
Begging for passes backstage.
But after I had done Bitches Brew, and then Miles had asked me to come down. They were playing at the Village Gate, and it was the band. I guess they call it the Lost Quintet. With Wayne and Jack and Chick. He said, I want you to come down every night and hear the band, because I was going to go on the road. Lydia DeJeanette was going to have her first child, and Jack was going to stay home and be with her, and I was going to go on the road with the band. So I went down to the Village Gate for a week every night and listened, to the band. And it was deep because Art Blicky came one night and sat in. There's two drummers, Art and DeJeanette.
Wow.
Sonny Rollins came, and then Herbie came.
Okay.
And one night, Chick would play the electric piano, and Herbie played the acoustic piano. And Chick would play, and Herbie would answer everything that Chick played. It was remarkable. That was really, really special.
That should have been recorded, Lenny.
I was going to say, if somebody had a tape recorder going on that thing, wow.
It should have. So I had gone to do that, and I was getting ready to. I had spoken to Jack Whittemore, who was Miles's manager at the time, a booking agent. Harold Levette was his manager.
Manager.
Lawyer, yeah.
Manager.
And we had worked out, fine. And I was going to go to Lenny's on the Turnpike and play. And I was over Miles's house listening to the outtakes of Bitches Brew. And I said, Miles, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go into Brooklyn to meet my girlfriend. Where you going? I said, he said, I'll take you in. So he drove me into Brooklyn and dropped me off. And, I was cool, get ready, and he got shot.
Wow.
So I never got that opportunity to go and play on the road with him. I recorded with him again, part of Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
Done that, And it was weird. One night I was playing a gig with Dave Liebman and Steve Grossman. And there's two drums, Bobby Moses and myself.
Okay.
And Miles came to the gig. He came in the dressing room afterwards, and he said, do you want to play with Jimi Hendrix? And I said, nah, because I was enamored with Miles. Stupid.
Oh
You turned
man,
down Jimi Hendrix,
Jimi
Lynn?
Hendrix.
Oh,
Hey, Lynn, you
yes.
turned
Oh,
down Jimmy and Journey?
Oh, I didn't tell them that story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's another.
that's for
Hey, Brian,
another.
ask him about that.
Hey, not
No,
me.
no,
Vince asked him. Vince
no.
asked.
Yeah, no, I had gone out to San Francisco, and I was in this band called Azteca,
Okay.
and with Pete and Coke Escovedo, Paul Jackson on bass, Tom Harrell on trumpet. It was a really nice, great band. And so we had some time off, and Chick gave me a call. He was in Japan. He says, "Listen, Stanley and I are coming to San Francisco. Would you play a week with us at the Keystone Corner?" I said, "Great, yeah, I'm here. I don't. And so they came out, and we did a week at the Keystone Corner in San Francisco, and it was remarkable. It was absolutely great. On the last night, two guitar players, a percussion player, and saxophone player sat in. It was Mel Martin, who played saxophone, and Mingo Lewis played percussion,
Mingo.
and the guitarists were Barry Finnerty
Okay.
and Billy Connors. And so after the set, Chick said, "Listen, man, I want to start an electric Return to Forever.
Right.
Would you be into doing it?" And I said, "Well, Chick, I'm out here with Azteca, and I think I'm going to stay out here and do this." So he said, "Yeah, okay, I understand." So they went back to New York, and he got Steve Gadd to play. And so I'm still out in San Francisco. And while I'm out in San Francisco, a manager, Herbie Herbert, came and said, "Listen, you're not doing anything now, man. Would you be into jamming with Neil Sean and Ross Valerie?" I said, "Yeah, sure. Cool. And so I did a jam. I have a cassette here somewhere of us playing.
Wow.
And after it was over, man, they were like, "Oh man, it was so great, man! Like we're gonna start this band, and Greg Rowley from Santana is gonna be in the band too, and we'd like to know if you want to be in this band with us." So by the time that had happened, Chick had called me back and said, "Come on, man, come on back and let's do this band. You into doing that?" And I said, "Okay, yeah." So I left and went back and did Return to Forever. But that band that I was supposed to be in was Journey.
Would go on. I'm sure. Well, hey man, it's you've done plenty well for yourself, regardless, man. Playing with Jimmy
Yeah.
Cole and Return to Forever. So hey,
But
Journey's lost. Journey's
and you
lost.
know what, Brian?
Yeah.
That's why I love Lynn so much, is because he's never pigeonholed. He's never locked into one
Absolutely.
thing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
He's like a chameleon, and he's always evolving, and
Yep.
that's one of the
Well, because you got to understand, my first exposure to this music is through Bitches Brew. So
yeah, we start there. Yeah.
we start there, and so that's where it's got to be. It's got to go like that.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to wrap with some final questions here. Vince mentioned the stories. Everybody's got Miles Davis stories. When you think back on those early sessions, is there one funny, poignant, powerful memory that is kind of stuck in your brain?
You know what? I know. Okay, there is one. There is one. And it wasn't at the session.
Okay.
This is after it had happened, and Stanley Clark and I went over to Miles's house one day.
Okay.
And Miles had a veggie burger.
Okay.
This is before it had a veggie burger.
Yeah, it's pretty health conscious back then.
And he offered me some of it, and I it was good. It tasted great. But Stanley was like, I don't know. He was a meat eater, and like he really couldn't get the concept of not eating meat and everything.
Yeah.
And like there was this whole big thing, and we talk about it all the time. Remember the veggie burger? So I mean, it was all in fun though.
Right, right.
It was cool. But
That's right.
at the sessions, man, Miles was like he knew what he really wanted,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it was in his head, and we didn't know. And after he had done it, then I guess T.O. did some things to change things around. And it wasn't that T.O. did it by himself. Miles had given T.O. some direction in what he wanted.
Right.
So I think in his head, he always had the idea of what it is.
Lynn, that's what you said, and I agree. That anytime Brian, if you read the top of the albums, it always says "Directions of Music,"
right,
by Miles Davis.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting. So I'm curious, as you move on to doing your own stuff, your own leader groups, were there lessons that we were able to, absorb from Miles with regard to playing or leading a band? Because I've always said this, I'm a trumpet player, and I've always thought that Miles had a very special relationship with his drummer.
Right.
Very high standards for the drummer.
See this book?
Yeah.
I teach a lecture class at NYU every semester from this book.
Yeah.
And it talks about, the book talks about the actual sessions and what Miles's mindset was before doing it and at the time of doing it. And that mindset can be somewhat of a blueprint in how to start and to lead a band in making music. And what's interesting about it is that what the book talks about is how those things permeated, and not just in jazz music, but they talk about a lot of different artists from different genres of music, how Bitches Brew was a beacon in what it is they were going to do from that.
Yep.
Radiohead.
Right.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of different kinds of groups that listen to that music and created what it is that they created.
Right.
So that
album that launched 1,000 bands.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I I'm curious about this too. Lenny, did you ever end up meeting Tony Williams?
Did I meet him? Of course. I played with him.
That's
we
right.
We played two drums.
Where did you meet him? When was that?
Well, the fact is I had seen him. I had been going to see him forever. When I was able to get into jazz clubs, I never forget, man. I went to the Vanguard, and Miles was supposed to play at the Vanguard, but Miles didn't show up. And it was Freddie Hubbard, with everybody else, and Freddie Hubbard. And I sat in like drummer's corner over there in the Vanguard, and sat and watched Tony, man. And I was like, it's
watching
it was. I got lessons in how to do things by just watching. And then when I got to meet him and we got to talk, and he would say certain things, it was really great. Evidently he felt as though that I was amenable enough to hear what he had to say, and it would help me and help my playing. So
beautiful.
That's amazing.
Well, hey, Lenny, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Thanks for the stories. Thanks for the observations. This has been great. This is kind of like our inaugural Miles Monday episode. So thanks for being here, man, to help celebrate Miles.
Oh, thank you.
There we go. Showing off the merch available at where?
Machine Gun Lenny White. That's his nickname.
That's right.
MilesDavis.com.
That's right. Check
hey, Brian, I just want to say I was just quiet, man, because I can never stop learning from Lenny. You know what I mean? And I'm humble enough to say that on all social platforms. But Lenny has taught me so much and continues to teach me. And one thing I want to say real quick, Lenny is honest. He's honest with the music. You know what I mean? You want to gravitate to somebody who's honest with the music.
Yes.
Miles was honest to the music.
Yes.
You know, with the music and to the music. Ron Carter, Herbie. It's guys that you want to, you just want to be a sponge to.
Yes.
And I'm just like a kid, like I was when 15 years old, listening to this.
Absolutely.
It's respect.
Yeah.
You know,
let me say this too. When my dad passed away, Lenny came off of the Return to a Forever tour, flew to Chicago, made the service, and then flew back and joined the tour that night.
Wow. I find that so often the case. If there's truth and honesty in the music, there's truth and honesty in the person, in the relationships.
Yeah.
It translates. You
Yeah,
know?
definitely.
Yeah, we have to represent the music.
That's right. You've been doing it well, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you are a legend, a founding father of this music, and it has been an absolute pleasure, like I say, talking to you today.
Thank you, Brian.
Lenny,
Lenny White. Love you, Lenny White.
That's right. Lenny, we will see you backstage. I'm going to sign off with my co-host here, Vince.
Cool. Peace out.
So long.
Man. See you, Brian. Thanks,
See
Lenny.
All right, Vince. Hey, we will see you back next Monday for another Miles Monday. Again, if you're out there, you have questions for Vince and whoever our guest may be, Monday is going to be the day to chime in to celebrate all things Miles Monday. Vince, where can people, you mentioned the shop, you mentioned URL. Well, where can people go to check these things out?
For all the merch,
yes,
milesdavis.com, and just click on shop.
There you go.
You can get all whatever you want, man. It's right there. You know,
Very
all
cool.
Miles. And music, lithographs, everything.
Very cool. Well, Vince, thank you so much for joining me again on Miles Monday. I'll see you next week, man. And same with everyone watching. You can tune in. We do Jazzes live every weekday as well, coming up to you with some news, some reviews, some interviews. It's a mixed bag, but thank you so much for following along. Vince, let's sign off, man. So long to you.
Stay safe, B.
You
See
too.
you next week. All right. Peace.
Bye, Vince.